Hi, welcome back. In this tutorial we're going to have a look at making an open and closed triangle sound. Now this is a pretty cool sound that I quite like using in more housey kind of tracks. It might suit some more tribal or even Latin type tracks. It's going to be very easy to make because you may have already noticed when we did the ride tutorial, there's already a sound in that ride sub-rack that is very much like a triangle to begin with. So if we go to this rack here, let's just hide some of these things so that we can see properly. This first one here is already pretty close to a triangle. So we're just going to copy that one and we'll copy it to this pad called Slice 4 because there's two pads that are free right next to each other there. We just drag it there and hold Control or Alt on Mac and we'll rename that to Open Triangle. Now, this is going to be really straightforward as far as all we're going to really do here is change the pitch slightly. And as you will have seen so far, changing the pitch isn't as simple as using the transpose control when we're using these loop settings here. We actually change the pitch more easily by changing the loop size. It doesn't make it any easier to predict what pitch it's going to end up at. But that doesn't really matter for what we're doing because we're not trying to create any kind of specific notes or anything like that. So if we just create a new clip, or actually we'll just use this one for now. Even that's not too bad already. Right, and I didn't really change much at all. So what I'll do now is rather than messing about with it too much here like this, I'm going to duplicate that clip and I'm going to duplicate the triangle. I'm going to just drag it to the next pad and copy, hold Control or Alt and change it to closed, rename it there. And now all I'm going to do on the closed one is just pull the decay back a bit. That's alright like that, really. So what I'm going to do is just like we did with the toms and the congas, I'm going to group the two of these together just using the context menu, group or Control G or Command G on Mac, and I'm going to actually map some of these functions to the macros to give us some real-time control over them so that rather than tuning them here and trying to get it exact, that'll give us the option of tuning them in real time as we go. So I think if we map the start, loop and length settings and maybe the transpose and then maybe the envelope settings here. But we'll only do that for the open triangle. For the closed triangle we want that to stay, the envelope settings to stay where they are. So I'll just rename these first because that makes it easier. So we'll call that start. Then loop, then length, and transpose. We'll call this transpose and not pitch because, as you'll see in a minute, changing the transpose is not a reliable way to change the pitch. Because we're looping a small part of the waveform. It will change the pitch, but it will be difficult to predict how it will sound in the end. Attack, decay, sustain. Oh, that's got two L's in there. I don't need both of those. Right, so if we map start to start, loop to loop, length to length, transpose to transpose. We'll leave the envelope settings for the closed triangle, but for the open heart triangle, we'll map attack to attack, decay, sustain. And of course you can map this in any way you like. And so I'm not really worried too much about the order we do it in. I know in maybe toms and the congas we might have put the envelope at the top here, but doesn't matter for now. You'll want to set it up your own way anyway. So I'm just going to really get it happening for the moment. Alright, so that's not going to play anything as it is at the moment because everything's reset to 0 as it tends to do when you map to macros. So let's just get it back to sort of vaguely where it was. We'll set the decay to, I don't know where it was, somewhere up there. Transpose was, oh, we haven't mapped the open triangle to transpose. So that was all the way up, I think. And we haven't mapped these either. Okay, so there. Okay, that's right. So loop was somewhere down here, length. I'm not sure really, but that'll do for now. Get us started. We'll just make a little pattern. Hold the Alt key or the Command key on the Mac to change the velocity settings. Okay, now what we can do is we can just start playing with these. I'm going to use my UC33, but if you don't have a controller, you can just change these. And one of the reasons I've mapped these is apart from being able to change certain settings for both of them at the same time, it's also just a lot of fun to play around with in real time, because once you start messing about with these, you can get some really cool effects. See, we've created a shaker already. So I'm not going to do a tutorial on creating a shaker. You can pretty much probably figure that one out by yourself by now if you've followed all of these tutorials. In fact, that sound there is pretty much a shaker already. All you'd need to change is maybe give it a high pass filter and change the envelope settings and you've got a shaker there. So I won't bother creating that tutorial. So you can hear here that turning the knobs has quite a dramatic effect. So you may want to go into the map mode here and maybe change the minimum and maximum settings just to have a different effect over them so that you're not jumping from one to the next. But I'm going to leave that for now. Rename that to triangle. Okay, let's create a little loop using our last beat. I'll get rid of the congas. And we'll copy this triangle pattern here. Control C or Command C on the Mac. Okay, see, it just pastes it wherever the hell it likes. That's something about live, I don't know why. There seems to be no method to pasting in different clips. It'll just paste it wherever it feels like, apparently. So let's trigger that. Maybe we'll get rid of that open hi-hat. Move the closed hi-hat over a couple of notches. And if you want to get more precise, just select the knob and use the arrow keys on the keyboard. I might go and just change these toms quickly then, just select that. Go back to the triangle. Maybe get some of our send effects. Bit of grain delay there, that's quite a nice effect. I'm now on both the toms and the triangle. And there you go, that's it. I could stay here playing around with that all day. But you can see by mapping it to the macros, gives you a lot more real-time control over it, so you can use it in a more performance-oriented or improvisational sort of way. You know, even if you're just producing or making a track at home and you don't need to perform with it, it still helps it. That real-time approach really helps you kind of get it exactly how you want it. And like I've said throughout all of these tutorials, I really want to emphasize that none of this is permanent. You really want to get in the habit of changing it as you go. Because as soon as you add one thing, you're going to want to change everything else to make it all fit together. EQ settings especially, because once you mix things together, you'll find out some frequencies clash. So it's really good to just get in the habit of keeping everything constantly changing. I mean, of course, you'll get to a point where you're happy with things the way they are, and that's fine. But you often don't really get to that part until you've finished adding all the elements together, and that can be very late in the process. But at this stage, when you're still making all the sounds, you still want to keep everything as fluid and flexible as possible so that you can easily and quickly change things as you start adding different sounds. Because as soon as you add two sounds together, they both change and sound different. That's why you might often come across that situation where you like a sound on its own, but as soon as you mix it together with something else, it changes and sounds different. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.